How y'all doing? I'm doing great. So tell me if this sounds familiar. Some time ago, you watched Dark on Netflix. And you were like, wow, that was super cool. Confusing, but cool. So when you heard that the creators of Dark were coming out with a new show, you were really excited to see how it would go. So you watched it, and you got caught up in the tangled web of plot threads and details that don't really get explained. And the mystery keeps getting bigger and bigger, and you get to the end of the season excited to see where the show goes from here, and it gets canceled. So now you're just here like, now how am I going to find out what was going on in this show? Because, yeah, same. 1899 is what I like to call a mystery box story. Definition on screen. And I've dedicated myself to explaining as many of them as possible. Then afterwards, I give each story a rating out of 10, using my 10 criteria for what makes mysteries like these fun and engaging. So, let's autopsy this cancelled show and see what little information we have to try and explain 1899. $1899 was a Netflix original series by Baran Bo Adar and Jante Friese, the creators of Dark. This show was originally described to me as Dark mixed with Lost, and yes please, that's like the perfect intersection of all things mystery box. I was really excited and curious to see what these seasoned mystery box writers would do, and they created a really promising start. Even if it won't ever end up going anywhere, it's still worth looking into, to check out the state of the genre, and to try and provide some semblance of closure for anyone desperate to get a glimpse of where this story was headed. Oh, and by the way, a quick note for anyone who hasn't watched this show yet. First of all, why are you watching a video that spoils the entire story? But also, this show features characters who speak a variety of different languages, but Netflix defaults to dubbing over all of it in English. If you're going to watch this show, please change it back to the original languages. I'm not saying this to be a snob or to judge you if you aren't a fan of subtitles, but the fact that characters speak different languages is an important plot point. If you watch the dubbed version, you get weird moments like a character saying something in English, and then another character responding, sorry, I don't speak Danish, also in English. Watch it with subtitles, trust me, it's the way to go. The show opens with the main character, Mora, screaming at a shadowy figure about how he took her brother and that she knows what he's doing to the ships before she's dragged away. Then we cut away and Mora is on a luxury steamship. She has no memory of whatever happened in the opening scene, but she keeps getting flashes of it. The crew of the ship, called the Kerberos, gets a signal from another ship called the Prometheus, which went missing 4 months ago. But when they go find the ship, it's deserted, except for a creepy little boy, and this guy, Daniel, who sneaks onto the ship with this bug thing and some future-y looking technology. As we go, we're introduced to all the many characters on board the boat. Most of them have hidden agendas and mysterious backstories. We get to learn those backstories as some of them start having hallucinations that bring them back to traumatic moments of their lives. The captain, for example, keeps seeing his wife and daughters who died in a fire. People suddenly start dying all over the ship. Most people assume that it's the little boy who caused this, and who killed the Prometheus passengers, so they stage a mutiny and throw the boy overboard. But he comes back. A bunch of passengers get hypnotized and start jumping overboard. While that's going on, the boy takes Mora through this secret passage in the ship to this other world. Then he and Daniel meet up and talk about how this is some kind of time loop. After the captain discovers Mora's name on the Prometheus passenger list, he presses Mora to reveal that her last name is Singleton. Her father, Henry Singleton, is the owner of the ship company, and he's running some kind of experiment with all this. We get more and more hints that this whole world isn't real, but instead a simulated reality, with Henry presiding over it all. And as Mora investigates this, Daniel tells her that in the outside world, they're husband and wife, and the boy, Elliot, is their son. Now, Daniel and Elliot are infiltrating the simulation to free her, racing against Henry and his mole, first mate Sebastian. Mr. Singleton is trying to get a key from Mora that ends the simulation. Weirdly, even though he seems like he's in charge, he keeps talking about how he himself is also trapped. Mora tries to avoid him, but eventually, Mr. Singleton captures Elliot and takes the key. He explains that it wasn't he who created the simulation, it was her. She made it to forget something painful that happened to her. And all the other passengers on the ship entered the simulation voluntarily for similar reasons. Daniel tells Mora that her dad isn't the one in charge of all this, it's her brother. Mr. Singleton uses the key, but Daniel hacks the simulation to make Mora's wedding ring the key. Mora uses it and wakes up from a Matrix-style pod on a spaceship in the year 2099. And that's where the story ends. It sucks, I know, but we do get resolutions to some of the plot threads by the season finale. There are some aspects of the story that are given enough detail for us to piece together what's going on, and there are others that were only set up for later seasons that will never come. The gist of the story is that this ship and the world we see in the year 1899 isn't real. It's a simulation, created by Mora and her family. Most of the passengers are also simulated, but most of our named characters are real people who are plugged into this world Matrix style. How did the simulation come to be? According to what we hear in the finale, Mora built it, but somewhere down the line, her brother Ciaran took it over. When the story starts, we're jumping into a long-standing power struggle between Mora, Daniel, Ciaran, and Henry over control of this virtual world. But why? What's the point of this simulation? Well, it's a little vague, but the general idea seems to be that people in the simulation chose to enter in order to leave behind some kind of past trauma.
They came on this trip because they made the choice to forget their past. And now they're all stuck in here as well.
The show gives us some mixed messages on this. On one hand, the story is pretty explicit about the idea that Mora built the simulation specifically to make herself forget about her own trauma. But that reasoning doesn't apply to the other passengers, who all have traumatic backstories that they definitely remember. So there must be some other purpose here, if not to forget trauma, then maybe to study it. The show also tells us that Henry has been using the simulation to observe aspects of the human mind. It seems like the passengers are being tortured like lab rats. If that's the case though, I don't know why anyone would volunteer for this. My guess is that either they were tricked into it, or somehow the fate of the human race depends on these experiments. On that note, if these people are all from the future, then how do they have memories of events that took place in the 1800s? My thinking is that these people experienced something horrible in the real future world, and then when they entered the simulation, all of their memories got 1899-ified, where the gist of them was the same as what really happened, but with details changed to make it take place in the past. Within the simulation, who was real and who wasn't? For the most part, the named characters are real people, and all the background extras are just NPCs, if you will. Halfway through the show, there's that scene where most of the people on board throw themselves into the ocean. The implication is that this happened to get rid of all the fake people and just leave us with the real ones. But there were a few notable named characters who also jumped, namely Crester. Does that mean that he wasn't real? To get a more accurate count of real people, we can look at the last scene of the show, where we see all those people in pods. Those are the people who are plugged into the simulation. Besides Mora, we can see Virginia, Captain Ike, Crester, Tove, Oleg, Lingyi, Yukji, Ibn, Anker, Angel, Ramiro, Jerome, Clements, and Lucien. So those people are real, along with people like Henry, Daniel, and Sebastian. Although that list might not be totally accurate for reasons I'll get into later.
You're not asking all the right questions.
Why were Mora's and Captain Ike's names on the manifest for the Prometheus? Because this simulation is happening on a loop. In the previous loop, the characters were all on the Prometheus. Then things got reset, and this time they're on the Kerberos. Every ship we see in this shot represents another loop. Daniel and Elliot exploited this to use the Prometheus to gain access to the current loop by sending coordinates to the Kerberos. Speaking of Elliot, what was with all those flashbacks with him and Mora? The short answer is that Elliot is dead. The Elliot that we see is a simulated copy. The implication of what we see is that Elliot was dying, and rather than accept his death, Mora built a simulation and uploaded a copy of Elliot's brain into a computer, so that she would never be without him, despite Elliot's protests.
Don't worry, my love. Don't be afraid.
That was the original purpose of the simulation, but later down the line, Henry and/or Ciaran took it over for their own purposes. Relating to that, let's try to go over the motivations of the Singleton family, because there are a whole lot of different factions clashing here. Unfortunately, this is one area where I don't have a lot of answers. The show didn't get far enough to explore this in detail. Mora is the creator of the simulation, but she had her memory wiped, so she has no idea what's going on. Henry is using the simulation to conduct experiments on the human mind with the people inside, but also he's trapped inside with them. Fighting against him is Daniel and Elliot, who are trying to hack in and wake up Mora to give her her memory back. But both Henry and Daniel are trying to escape the simulation, allegedly. so it's not super clear why they're enemies here. There are definitely some pieces missing. And Ciaran? He's a complete mystery. We get almost no information about him. All we know is that Daniel and Henry see him as an enemy. Next, what were those beetles for? Daniel and Elliot use these throughout the show to unlock things and lead them to certain places. The answer is pretty simple. These are bugs. Like computer bugs. Get it? They exploit the simulation code. And by that same logic, the black goo is a computer virus. Why was Daniel killing people with the bugs when he first got on board? Well, Daniel never actually killed anyone. The people he did kill were all fake NPC people. We don't know specifically what he was trying to accomplish, but my best guess is that since Daniel has tried to rescue Maura many times over multiple loops, he knows that these people will eventually mess up his plans via the butterfly effect, so he gets rid of them early. What's with the triangle symbol? This is the logo for the show, and it shows up everywhere. The only verbal acknowledgement we get of it in the show is that it's the ship company's logo, but more broadly, it's the logo for the simulation. The way that it shows up in the most unlikely of places serves as a hint to the characters and the audience that this world isn't quite real. The symbol is also connected to the whole pyramid motif that's going on. I have a feeling that the symbol's meaning would have developed over multiple seasons. Finally, I'll do a little speculating about where the show was planning on going, if it hadn't been cancelled. The one thing I'm very confident in saying is that the 2099 setting in the finale is another layer of simulation. The whole point of the show is to explore the whole Plato's allegory of the cave thing where you can never know if the world you're in is real. There's no way the simulation is only one layer deep, and there's no way the show would reveal the real world in the first season. Which means that even though I made a list of characters who are quote-unquote real, it's very possible that some of these people are also simulated. Or also, it's possible that all of the quote-unquote simulated people are also real, considering that the spaceship and the steamship both have the same number of passengers. There's no telling what kinds of mind-bending twists and turns we could have gotten as the show went on.
If you're brave enough, I can show you the truth.
I'm not bitter. I'm fine. It's not like good TV shows are the only thing I have in life, right? So, those are the mysteries that make up the story of 1899. But are those mysteries fun and satisfying? Well, no, because we can't see the ending. But still, let's see how well the show that we do have fits the formula for a good mystery box story. Does the show have a big opening mystery? Yep, the first scene of the show, the encounter with Maura and her dad cloaked in shadow, is enough to get your mind spinning with questions. And once the Prometheus comes into the picture and the story really kicks off, more and more questions pile on about the nature of the ship and this reality, all building to the eventual reveal that everything we're seeing is inside a simulation. These mysteries are presented directly to the audience as questions for them to wonder about. A lot of the characters even ask a lot of the same questions that we do. The show is not long. It might have been, but as it stands, we only have 8 episodes. Not enough time for the mysteries to develop. I'd say that the first season's mysteries are very well paced. The show opens with a number of questions that build and add onto each other as the story goes on, until the end where a whole lot of details come together, with a few big reveals in the last episode that satisfy your immediate curiosity, but still leave you wanting more answers from later seasons. Everything we see is diegetic. The show takes place over multiple layers of reality, but all those realities are part of the story. No weird, symbolic, metaphorical visuals that might confuse us about what's actually happening. Even with flashbacks, it's always clear which ones are being experienced in the present, triggered by the simulation, and which ones are traditional flashbacks that really show us an event in the past. It pains me to do this, but the ending does not explain enough. I know that the story wasn't finished, but I have to judge what we have. And the fact is, watching this show will leave you disappointed with the lack of explanations you get. But I will give the point for setting up answers in advance. I have no doubt that the creators had plans for where the story would go from here, and what other reveals there would be. But even just with Season 1, the reveals that we do get in the finale were carefully crafted, with hints laid out all across the season before the final reveals. Finally, are the mysteries tied directly to the characters, so that we can get emotionally invested while we try to solve them? This is the one big thing that this show has over Dark. In Dark, the characters can get a little lost in the mechanics of time travel. But in 1899, it's all about the characters, and their experiences, their perception of these multiple layers of reality. We care about Maura and everyone else, as they navigate this maze, deal with their emotional baggage, and figure out when and where and who they are. Before I go, what common mystery box story tropes pop up in this show? The shadowy organization running things behind the scenes is Henry Singleton, at least for season 1. With the reveal of Ciaran at the end, I bet that the story would reveal layer after layer of shadowy organizations that are actually behind things. The person who knows what we want to know and holds back all their information until it's most convenient for the plot is Daniel.
You must have family back home.
I don't.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
We've got plenty of non-linear storytelling through flashbacks, and while I wouldn't say there's time travel exactly, the simulation plot device makes it so that we never really know what time period we're actually in. We have a classic moment of somebody who's about to reveal something but gets interrupted in episode 5, when Ike asks Maura about her name in the Prometheus manifest.
Who are you really?
And there's not really any conspiracy board unless you count all the TV screens that Henry watches the passengers on. The story of 1899 worries me. Not the plot of the show, the story of what happened to the show. Netflix canceling it after 1 season, after it barely being out for a month, after barely marketing it. A huge reason why I make these videos about mystery box stories is to spread awareness. I want to give this genre a proper name and establish its conventions. There have been so many mystery box stories that have fallen flat over the years because they don't learn from the mistakes of their peers. They don't plan their mysteries in advance, or they forget to make their characters interesting, or they don't feature mysteries prominently enough for people to notice or care. And the only time I really see people talking about mystery boxes are in articles and think pieces that call J.J. Abrams an idiot and talk about how stories like this are always doomed to fail. By pointing out ways that different examples succeed and fail, I'm trying to prove that mystery box stories can be great. They just need proper care and attention. Another big part of why many mystery box TV shows have failed over the years is limitations of the medium. It's really hard to plan a complicated plot in advance over multiple seasons, when shows only get renewed 1 season at a time. That's why so many mystery boxes on cable TV were super disappointing. But the streaming revolution revitalized the genre. It allowed for greater flexibility and creative freedom for showrunners to plan what they need. In the last few years, mystery box stories have become more common, and audiences have become more familiar with the conventions of the genre, thanks to streaming. This all led to Baran bo Adar and Jante Friese spearheading a fantastic mystery box story for Netflix not just once, but twice. They've proved that they understand how this genre works, and could have served as a model for future shows for years to come. 1899 could have been the final evolution of the mystery box story, a definitive blueprint for how to write one of these things. But instead, its cancellation signals a really bleak future for mystery boxes and TV. It shows that with the dumpster fires going on Netflix and HBO Max right now, streaming services aren't as willing to invest in long-term projects anymore. The media landscape that led to so many new mystery box shows in the last decade might be gone. And the general lack of excitement for the show when it came out shows that audiences aren't as willing to invest in complicated plots that only get resolved years down the line. I don't think mystery boxes will ever really die, but I think we might be about to enter a sort of dark age, where stories that require high engagement and work aren't seen as a sound financial investment. I really, really hope that's not the case. 1899 gets a final mystery box rating of 8 out of 10, but it should have been a 10.
We've never made it this far. Maybe it will work this time.